Hello, my name is Turner Island and this is my automated blackjack dealer. So the first thing I'm gonna do for this video is go through a walk around about kind of where everything's laid out and what everything does. So right here we have our power on off and an emergency stop button. And this whole thing is ran by this Allen Bradley Point.io system that talks to my Compact Logics PLC in the classroom in the room over. So over here we have some pneumatics air solenoids, and these are what power the dealer to go left, right, up and down. And that all happens with this air hose that is fed in right here. And that air allows these air cylinders to operate and then move the dealer in whatever way the Point.io tells it to. So right here we have a pressure regulator and then a pressure transmitter on top. So there's a black knob behind here that we can turn it up and down to increase the PSI. And then this transmitter goes and feeds into our analog card so we can display the PSI, and I have that displayed on my HMI. So to control this, there's a couple different ways we can control it. One would be our controller that we have right here, and we have 4 different buttons that are usable. We have deal, bust, hit, and stand. So when you press the deal button, it initiates the deal sequence, which will drop 2 cards in each player's spot. So we have player 1, player 2, and dealer. So each player will receive 2 cards when the deal is pressed. After that's done, on the HMI it'll display whether player 1 or player 2's up and if they're able to press hit or stand. So after the player has looked at their cards and determined whether they want to hit or they want to stand, they select either or button. If they hit and they bust, you then press the bust button and it goes to the next player. And that continues. Player 2 then decides whether he wants to hit or stand, and if he hits too much, he'd press bust and then it'd go to the dealer. And the dealer has to hit until he reaches 16. And then you determine if you won the game depending on the dealer's hand. So I'll now walk you through this thing moving along with a side-by-side of the HMI and how that operates.
So here we have our login page, and we're going to type in the user player and then type in our super secret password that goes along with it. And now the play button appears on the bottom right. So here's our how to play page, which goes over making sure we have the correct PSI set, how to play, pressing the deal button, letting the dealer drop the cards by itself, talking about if the vacuum doesn't pick up a card, how to adjust the cards so the vacuum will pick up a card. When the deal sequence is complete, the HMI will indicate which player is up. And then based on that, like I said before, you can hit, stand, or bust. When the dealer is finished dealing, you can press deal and restart the game. So right here, we're going to press deal and restart the game, and then get the deal sequence going. So the dealer will go through and it'll deal each player 2 cards, and we'll just watch it do that. So once that last card's dropped, you can see the HMI now says player 1, hit or stand. So we got dealt an 8 and a 5. So it's 13. So I think we're going to hit on that one. So we'll go over and we'll press hit. And then the dealer will come by and drop us another card. And we get a jack. So we bust on that hand. So we'll go and click bust, and now you can see player 2 hit or stand. So we got a 4 and a 2 for player 2. So we'll hit for that one. And we got a 10. So 16. We're going to take a stand on that one, I think. 2, 4, and a 10. We'll hit stand, and now it's the dealer's turn. And the dealer, of course, even in the automated blackjack world, the dealer is still winning. The dealer has a 20. So the dealer beat both player 1 and player 2. What we can do here is put the cards back in the deck, pick them up, give them a shuffle, and then we just repeat this whole process, just like a normal blackjack game. And all we have to do to restart the game is put the cards back in, press deal, and we're ready to go. So here's our program for the automated blackjack dealer. We got a couple different subroutines. In our main routine, we just have some jump to subroutines, just telling the program to jump to the other subroutines that we have. So our first subroutine we have is the analog scale. And this subroutine just takes the raw data that's being inputted into the analog card from the pressure transmitter, and then we just do a little scaling and come out with the actual PSI number that is being put into the machine. So here's our deal subroutine, and this is responsible for the dealing sequence. So you press the deal push button on either the HMI or the controller, and once this lights up, this will basically just initiate that whole deal sequence where every player gets 2 cards. So we only have a couple different outputs. We got valve left, and that is responsible for making the dealer go left. We also have a lot of timers that once something happens, like once the valve is left, then a timer will go off, initiating something else to happen, like the head going down and picking up a card. So that's what's going on right here. When the head goes down, it initiates the, or when, like when someone hits for a card, like right here, it activates this hit timer. And when that's timing, that'll latch this together and the head will go down and pick up a card. So we also have head up. So we have left, head down, head up. We have right. And that's the main motions of the dealer. And then, so we have different timers for depending on which player is being dealt a card. So if you're being dealt to player 1, it's only 185 milliseconds that um, valve is valve is being shot to the right. You can see right here, player first deal timer timing, so that'd be 185 milliseconds, and then to get to the second player, it's 450 milliseconds. And then the dealer's a lot easier. There's a limit switch on the far right side of the track, so I can just use limit switches here to make sure that the dealer is in the right spot to give itself a card. So that's mostly it for the deal segment. Then we have the hit and stand counters. This is mainly just for my HMI so I can display the cards when the vacuum goes off. It'll uh, count up on this counter right here if the player's dealt accumulation is equal to player one's turn, then I can see how many cards are being dropped in that tray, and I can display that on the HMI. And then lastly, we have the vacuum. This controls the vacuum that sucks up the card and how long the card is sucked up for. So every time the head goes down, depending on whether it's the dealer getting the card or just one of the players, these vac on timers make sure that the vacuum stays on. And then there's some delays I have right here, making sure that the vacuum stays on for long enough before, or so it can get to the tray and then drop the card. And then players dealt. This is really important for knowing whose turn it is. So like if you hit stand, players dealt goes up by 1, showing that player 2 would then be up. And that's the same if you bust. And then the last thing, when you press deal, all the timers and counters are all reset to reset you for a new game. Then we kind of have this random jump subroutine down here as well. But yep, that's it. That's all there is to this program, and now we will look at the wiring diagram for this project.
Is my AutoCAD drawing for my automated blackjack dealer. Over here we have my inputs. I have 3 input cards on my .io system. The first input card is my limit switches that are used to determine the position, either far left, far right, all the way up or all the way down on the dealer. Here I have a selector switch that I ended up not using. And then I have these 4 push buttons right here that are used for deal, hit, stand, and bust. And then I have my e-stop going into one of those inputs as well. Here I have my pre-pneumatic layout. These 3 things down here are my different air solenoids. And then the connections that are made throughout the project. On the left here we have the left and right. These 2 connections are responsible for making the dealer go left and right. These connections right here are responsible for it going up and down. And this little hose you see right here and this thing right here is the vacuum, and that's responsible for picking up and dropping the cards. Over here I have my outputs. I have 2 output cards. Here I have 4 solenoids that are those solenoids that I mentioned over here that operate the left, right, up and down movement of the dealer. And these 2 solenoids right here are for the vacuum, and these are just on and off. Right here I have my power receptacle, and that feeds into this 2-position selector switch, so the power can either be on or off. There's a light that goes with that selector switch. My .io system is powered through this along with my panel view. And the last card I have in my .io system is my analog card, and this takes positive voltage from my pressure transmitter and feeds it into this first input in the card. Then that's referenced back to common, and that is how I get the analog numbers, and I then convert them into a PSI range displayed on my panel view. So that is my CAD drawing, and that is about all for this video. That is my automated blackjack dealer.